Are you new to the virtual assistant space and you are just clueless about how people are making these sales online? I have brought in my own community manager and social seller, Wendy Brick, for today's episode of Free Mama TV. And we're going to walk you through exactly how you can sell your services online. What's up, Wendy? Welcome to Free Mama TV. I'm so glad you're here with me today. Plus, I just love spending time with you.
Same.
So you're actually a student of the Free Mama. You kind of went through this world and then really ran with it. You kind of started doing some PR stuff for some of your clients, getting people on podcasts and some speaking gigs, and you were doing some social media. Tell everybody just like, what was your background and maybe like a 30-second synopsis of like why you are the person to teach people how to make sales online.
So I was actually a nurse practitioner before I found Lauren, like everybody else in the community or most of us, looking for a way to be with my babies more. And I just had to find something else. So I found Lauren, I jumped into her course and I started as just a general VA. And I just started taking on different clients with different roles because I wasn't exactly sure how to take my healthcare brain and experience into something like this. So I just took on any kind of role that I could to try to figure that out. So like Lauren said, I was doing some PR and pitching and booking clients on podcasts. I did a little like email inbox organization. I did some social media management and I quickly found out what I liked and didn't like. But I really gravitated towards the social media management role. And then I started to find that I was really good at building relationships and talking with people and getting them to like help a client enroll in her masterclass and then helping her book clients. And then I started to think, okay, this is something. And Lauren actually told me, she's like, Wendy, you're not a social media manager. You're like a social seller. And then everything kind of went from there. So yeah.
Yeah. And I want to come back to what social selling even is, because it's not exactly what we're talking about in today's video, but it's a concept that's really important to understand. And we'll talk about why. But just listening to you share that, I think one of the biggest roadblocks a lot of people have when they first get into this online space, whether they've been staying home with their kids or they have a career that was in a completely different industry, is recognizing those transferable skills. But what you just said is like, you helped people, you talked to people, and you helped like guide them to a solution. And I'm guessing that from a transferable skill standpoint, that's actually probably pretty similar to what you were doing as a nurse. You had to have those interpersonal skills. You were there to make people feel comfortable and feel safe and feel heard while listening to their problems, what was bothering them, and then again, guiding them towards whatever their healthcare solution was. So I just want to like
exactly right.
Light bulb, connect that dot that like it doesn't have to be the same industry for you to still utilize those things that you're good at. And I know something that was important to you was just making a difference for people, and you're still able to do that. So what is social selling for people who are not familiar with this concept?
Social selling is basically building connections, starting conversations with people in the social media space to where you get them into a DM conversation. And then you can either get them to a sales call or a discovery call for yourself, or to, if you have a program or a course or something more low ticket to where it's easy to just send them a link and in a DM, you can do it that way. So basically it's about being on social media, building connections, talking with people in Facebook groups and things like that, getting them into a DM conversation, and then making a sale straight from social media, whether that be right out of the DMs or getting them to a sales call or discovery call with you.
Yeah. And maybe you'll end up being like Wendy, and this is something you'll actually offer to your clients. But the reason that we are coming together today to make this video is actually for you, because regardless of how you feel about sales, if you're going to be a virtual assistant or have any type of online business of your own, or any business for that matter, you have to sell or you don't have any money coming in. So we're going to talk about how we can apply this concept of social selling for you personally, so that you know how to sell your virtual assistant services online. And where would you say that this really starts? So when we're networking online, like where is this usually taking place for you in your experience, or how you also serve your clients?
Yeah, I would say, especially when I first started, but also for clients too, kind of two main buckets of how to do that and start those conversations to see if you can get a new client out of doing something like this. That first bucket is definitely Facebook groups. I know we talk about this a lot in the Free Mama community. Anytime I see anybody like, I don't know how to get a client, I'm like, what groups are you in? That's like my first question always. And so when I first started, I picked 2 or 3 Facebook groups where I knew that probably a big bulk of my ideal clients would be hanging out. And what I did was I chose 3 of them because I didn't want to get overwhelmed with trying to keep track of all of these things because those groups are busy. And so what I did was I just checked the notifications on those to where I would get notifications about those groups when new people would post. And the reason for that is there's a lot of job ops. People are literally saying job op, here, I have an opening. And what I found was it was really effective if I could be one of the first people to comment on those job ops within those groups where I was networking. And so checking that notification, I would see those really quick. And that way I could be one of the first people kind of commenting on those to start that conversation. Because what I found was those groups are busy and everybody's kind of doing the same thing. So I wanted to be able to be one of the first people to have that opportunity for, because usually when they post, they're paying attention pretty quickly.
Yeah,
those
money
posts
reward speed.
Yes. And if you watch, those posts get like hundreds of comments sometimes. So I quickly learned how to do that effectively. And then also for myself and for clients too, any new kind of like friend requests or new follows on Instagram, friend requests for Facebook, or if you're on LinkedIn, a new connection request, new just relationships that are coming into your world. They friend requested you for probably a reason. We're all kind of in this space trying to do the same thing, get to know people, gain new clients, potentially make a sale. And so I would just start conversations with anybody that was kind of reaching out to build that connection with me. So just starting a conversation there. So I would say those 2 buckets are being in those Facebook groups and learning, how to talk with people there and really paying attention to those job opportunities. And then also any new friend requests or connections on social media were those 2 that I kind of really gravitated to, both for myself and for clients.
Yeah. So with new client or new friend requests, connections, followers, all of those things, that conversation, I'm assuming you're initiating inside of a direct message.
Yes. So
Okay.
basically any new person that would come into my world or a client's world, I would just say, hey, thanks so much. So glad to see you here. How is everything?
Awesome. So before we continue on with DMs, because this is where we get a lot of questions from our students in the Free Mama Squad, let's go back over to Facebook groups, because I think this is where a lot of virtual assistants are networking and or trying to figure out what that looks like. I'm showing up. I say, like, I'm showing up, I'm commenting on things. Of course, there's a right and a wrong way to do that. And we don't want this video to be 5 hours long. So maybe you can give a couple of best tips. Obviously, speed we talked about, right? It's a job op. You want to get in there quickly. Maybe some tips for standing out, but also what are some ways that people, as they're networking in Facebook groups, how can they position themselves to be ready to move from a Facebook group to a direct message conversation? And then we'll talk about that strategy next.
Perfect. Yeah. So the first thing, and you will hear Lauren say, show up, engage, just talk to people. And so what I would do is I would be in those groups and I would look for anybody saying like, hey, I'm on Instagram and I need a tip about this. It wasn't necessarily about social selling or how to pitch somebody, but anything that I felt like I knew how to do and what I would want to help a client in that area, I would just give a couple of tips, not saying like, hey, DM me, buy this from me, be a client, but I was just trying to add value and education where I could. So I was looking for those job op posts, but I was also
strategically,
right? Yes.
You weren't trying to answer someone's accounting questions. You were very much aligning yourself with things related to social media.
That's exactly right. So I'll give you a quick story of something. This story always stands out to me about what I did and how I was just adding value and it turned into a client. Somebody was asking about Instagram. She was saying, I've been on Instagram. My engagement is down. I'm not getting any sales from Instagram. I'm not sure. I'm not really sure what's happening. Does anybody have any tips? Have you seen anything on Instagram that's changed for you? And so I saw this post and there were already comments of like, I'm a social media manager. Click my link and book a call with me. I can help you. These are my rates. Here's my website. And I was like, don't do that. Because it's like, she's just asking if anybody's noticed anything and you're immediately dropping a link to a sales call, dropping a link to your website. And it's like, that's not what she was asking for. So biggest thing is pay attention to what they're asking for you to do. I think this post particularly said, no DMs, please. And people were like, I'm sending you a DM, sent you a DM to talk. And it's like, pay attention. So rule number 1 is pay attention.
Rule number 1's paying attention, but also your pro tip from Wendy right now is even when the goal is to be selling, we don't always start by selling because that's actually the mistake these people made, right? It's like there was no cultivating. There was no qualifying. It was
Mhm.
just very aggressive. I always think of like
Yes.
either hunting analogies or like dating analogies. It's like, you know, you're just sitting at the bar drinking your drink, and all of a sudden someone's like, you want to go home and get in bed? And you're like, I'm
Mhm.
sorry. Like, I did
Right.
not ask for that. So, all
And
right.
I think that's where the sliminess and the fear
Yeah,
that people have comes from things like that. But it does,
it
I'm
doesn't
always,
work.
no. And I'm always like, build a relationship, build the connection, be a human, be normal first, please, before we jump to a sale.
Yeah,
And
offer to
so
buy me a drink or something.
yes, have a conversation first. This is the same thing. And so what I did was I went to her Instagram account and I'm like, okay, she's not posting very consistently. She's not using any hashtags. She doesn't have any call to actions to invite these people to talk further with her. So I just picked up those 3 things in like 2 minutes of scrolling her Instagram. So I went back to her post and I said, hey, I took a look at your Instagram and it looks like, you know, you're not using any hashtags. You can use up to 30 hashtags. I said there's like a way to have a sweet spot of how many you should be using and which ones. You could try that. I said, I also noticed you don't have any call to action. So you're not inviting them to like raise their hand or asking them if they're interested to send you a message, anything like that. So we're not telling them how to buy from you. They don't know what to do. They're not going to do it. We have to tell them that. And then I said, and the next thing is I saw that you've only posted like 2 or 3 times in the month. I said, maybe try posting a little bit more consistently. I see that you have stories, which is great. Make sure you keep up with your stories every day. If you don't have a lot of time to post, let me know if you have any questions. And that's all that I said. And like I said, there were hundreds of comments of people just dropping, raising their hand, let me help you. And I was the one person that she responded to. And she was like, thank you so much. Can I send you a message to talk further? We got on a call. I went more in depth about the things that I saw and I booked her as a client. And so just things like that. It's like, I don't even know if she was looking to hire someone or if she just wanted the comfort of saying like, hey, is anybody else seeing changes in Instagram? But by me taking the time and showing my expertise, and she was like, wow, I don't have time to be thinking
And
about things like
offering
that.
value, not holding it
Yes.
hostage, but actually giving her something she could
Yeah.
work with. Yeah.
And the awesome thing is that took me 2 minutes to go to her Instagram and see those things. If I would have just dropped the link and said, I'm a social seller or a strategist or whatever, here's my link, I never would have talked to her and I would have never gained her as a client.
Now, in this scenario, you wowed her so much that she actually wanted to send you a direct message.
Mhm.
It doesn't always go that way. And I think
Mm-mm.
one of the biggest questions that we get is, I'm talking to people in Facebook groups, like I'm leaving comments or they're commenting on my stuff. Maybe we're even going back and forth. At what point do you think it's appropriate for something to move over to a direct message conversation?
Yeah. So if they commented on something that you posted, especially if it's something where you're asking someone to raise their hand, if they comment on that, being pretty quick to say like, hey, thanks so much. Would it be okay to send you a message? That would be like if you were directly asking someone to kind of raise their hand and like, hey, yeah, me. Then I think it's totally appropriate to be like, awesome. I'm so excited to talk to you. Would it be okay if I sent you a message? Always ask for permission, especially in a Facebook group, to send them a message. A lot of those groups, you're not allowed to send a message with just randomly. And it's a respect thing. But also, if you're not friends with them on Facebook, a lot of people aren't really sure where to find the friend requests. And so if you tell them, hey, I sent you a message, then that alerts them to go look for that. So not just the respect of making sure it's okay, but also so that they know to go look for that message. If it's something to where you just had value. So for example, if we backed up and she wasn't like, Wendy, you're awesome. Can I send you a message? If she was like, thanks so much for these tips, you could say something like, no problem. I have a lot of experience with this. Would it be helpful if I talked with you a little bit further about some other things that you could do? And if she's like, yeah, that would be awesome. Great. Would it be okay if I sent you a message? The big thing that I always kind of talk about is if you comment something and they respond back, when you respond back, make it a question because it makes sure that the conversation keeps going. If it's a statement, or if I would have said, hey, I have a lot of things that I can help you. I can send you a message. If you'd like me to send you a message, just let me know. But if I just said, just let me know, she might say, okay, well, maybe one day. But because I asked her the question, it kind of made her feel like she should respond back. And that's whether that be in the DM or a comment that you're engaging on a post with. If you continue to ask the questions, it will keep the conversation going.
Awesome. Okay, I have another question, but I'm going to put it on hold because I want to talk about the whole DM space for a
Yeah.
while.
Yeah.
How do we navigate from feeling people out, maybe we're offering that value kind, like an extension of what you did in the comments, maybe some pre-qualifying to figure out if there is a fit. How do we get past kind of that nurture, like we're friends phase? And how do we know when we have a green light to actually sell? I think this is like a trigger point where some people, again, can be overly aggressive, or they actually hesitate too long because there's that fear there. So how could you advise someone to kind of read between those lines to have that green light to sell their services to the person they're talking to when it's not obvious from the other person?
Yes. And I think there is kind of a sweet spot, if you will. We don't want to come out with like, hey, here's a link to book a call with me like right away. Cause it's like, whoa, hold on a second. But you also don't want to string the chit chat along too long, because they're going to kind of get bored and tired and stop responding. However, I think that there's a lot of just people think, I see this a lot online, just on my accounts and clients' accounts, where people are like rapid fire interview style questions at people. And that automatically puts the wall up. So you don't want to say, hey, are you looking for a social media manager? Hey, what kind of things do you need? And like this is not an interview. This should be a conversation. So don't rapid fire questions at them. That's something that you can get to in a conversation on a discovery call. I do say, like, don't chit chat too long, but pay attention to the chit chat. So for example, there's a lot that you can learn about someone in terms of where they are in business. What is their financial budget? So maybe you want to work with someone and your packages start at $500 to $1,000 a month for what you offer. Asking them like, hey, thanks so much for connecting further with me here. I see that you're a business coach. How long have you been helping others? They're like, oh, I just started a month or two ago. Okay, bing, right there. We know that they're pretty new to business. Are they going to be able to afford something like $1,000 a month with them just getting started? Are they even thinking about outsourcing anything right now? Or are they just trying to, build their network and get to know what people are doing? So paying attention to the response there. If they're like, I've been in business for 5 years, things are really moving for me and I'm super, happy with how things are going. So, okay, they've been in business for about 5 years. Great. That's awesome. You've been in business for 5 years. I bet you have a team that's helping you. Like, where's your business going from here? I bet you've really evolved over the years. And if they're like, yeah, I've just added a VA, I'm really thinking about outsourcing my social media and something like that. You can tell without asking them, are you looking for a social media manager? Do you have a VA? By just having that conversation piece, you can get an idea of where they are. I could have said, do you have a VA? And they could have said, yes, I do. But what information would that have given me? And so I'm trying to have a conversation that allows me to read into their answers. So again, they've been in business for 5 years. Great. They're probably thinking about outsourcing if they haven't already. Let me see if they've already outsourced. Great. They have a team. And then again, if they have a team and they've been in business and they have a lot of clients, then you can think, okay, maybe they do have the budget to be able to pay me $500 a month. They're used to outsourcing. They know how these things work. So again, without coming out and just asking them interview style questions, by having that conversation, you can have an idea. But also if they're talking about, yeah, I just, traveled to Europe last year. And then 2 months ago, I was in Mexico and next week we're going here. That also gives us a good idea of maybe they do have the budget. If they have the budget to be going on vacation every month, they probably have a budget to, pay me $500 a month for my social media services. So reading into the things that they're saying is really helpful.
What are some of the worst questions that you've seen or gotten, or just kind of, if you could do like the mistakes you see people make, or
Okay.
what should we not be doing in DMs?
Okay. So the first thing that I would say is don't come right out and add your link or to your website or a link to your group or a link to book a call. Don't lead with that. I see so many cold DMs, and I am not against cold DMs. A lot of people are like, the DMs are dead. I'm like, no, you're just not doing it right. So have the conversation, be a human. Don't start with, hey, thanks so much. You're my new friend. Come to my group right now. Don't do that.
No one cares.
No, they're like, what? No. Okay. Unfriend, bye. So don't do that. If they don't respond, it's totally okay to follow up. Hey, thanks so much. I know that your inbox is probably crazy. I just wanted to follow up to see if you had a chance to look at my message, and leave it as a question. If they don't respond, don't be like, you see a lot of like cheeky messages where it's like,
hey, Wendy, I saw that you saw my message, but you didn't respond. Are you there?
With like the side eye emoji, like that's kind of aggressive. And I prefer not to do things like that. So I talk about a lot of ick being on social media. Don't be that ick. That's a little aggressive if you ask me. And then don't continue to follow up like, hey, did you see that? Hey, because that again is aggressive. So I would say the biggest thing is don't start with dropping your link. If one of the things that I have found super effective is I think it's okay if you have a Calendly link that you want to have them book a call. But if you get someone to where they're having a conversation and they want to have a call with you, manually book that call instead of dropping your Calendly link, because you take the effort off of them. If so, say, hey, I have space at 9, 10, and 11 on Monday. I have space Tuesday at 5 p.m. Central Time, and I have time Thursday between 10 and 12. Do any of those times work for you? They say, hey, 10 to 10 o'clock on Thursday works. Great. Here's the Zoom link. I'm also going to send you a calendar invite. What's your email? Great. And then send it for them. Because a lot of times what I found is people are like, great, let's book a call. And then they just drop their link and they don't hear from them ever again. And the reason for that is because then they're like, oh, I have to go to this Calendly link. Oh, there's a form that I have to fill out. I don't have time for that. Then they forget and people are afraid to follow up. And so I would say if you can book that manually for them. And then I guess the only other thing that I would say is don't be afraid of the follow-up. I think there's a fine line. So many people think like, oh, they didn't respond, so I shouldn't follow up. They just don't want to. People get very, very busy. And so put yourself in their shoes. I'm a mom. I have 2 kids. I'm at home. My husband's at home. Our kids are 3 and 1. Our life is crazy. I can easily open a message and read it and forget about it. So don't be afraid to follow up. Just don't be the person who is like crazy messaging them 3 times a day or even, every single day of the week, asking if they have followed up, but you shouldn't be afraid to follow up if they don't respond the first time.
So let's talk about rejection. How do you handle it? How do you know when to move on? How do you kind of get over it? Because I think especially with newbies, we forget about statistics. Like we just want it to work, and we tend to take it personally and make it emotional instead of realizing I've only talked to 3 people, and no, I haven't gotten a client, but I've only talked to 3 people.
Yeah.
And there's actually statistics on this and close rates. And yes, you can get better. So talk about rejection and kind of when to let go and how to move on. And then let's talk about the winning too.
Yeah. So I would say with the rejection, I mean, if this puts it into perspective, I was a nurse practitioner and I would get off of work and get home about 6 p.m. And then between 6 and 7, I would have dinner with my family. And then from like 7 p.m. to like 8:30, I would like try to take discovery calls almost every night. And it took me, I had calls booked up almost every single night. And a lot of them I didn't book. So don't freak out to think that you have to like book all of these clients because you're learning. There are things that you can do. Come to the call prepared. What is their business? Have you looked at their page? Like, do you know what they do? There's things that you can do. But not everything is going to be a fit. So maybe it's a budget, maybe what you offer isn't exactly what they're looking for. The sales call doesn't have to be a sales call. A lot of times the people are just trying to learn about you to see if that's actually what they need. Because when you're chatting through the DMs, if it's a quick conversation, they're not really exactly sure like what your exact package looks like until you get on that call with them. So if it's something to where like, this really isn't a fit right now. However, I think I could need this in the next month or 2. Okay. That doesn't mean this is a no. So maybe you tell them like, hey, I would love to follow up in a month. Would it be okay if we booked a call for a month? And if they're like, nah, I don't know if I'm ready for a call in a month. Great. I'm going to reach out to you in an email in about a month and we're going to pick up the conversation again. Would that be okay? I've never had anybody say, no, don't email me. And if they're still not interested, that's okay. But just to remember to do that follow-up again, set it in your calendar to follow up with them. I had somebody that I talked with and we had a great call and she ended up she was going to hire me. It was one of my first clients, and she ended up just having her full-time employee in her store just do the task that she was asking me to do. And so I was like, man, bummer. But I didn't really hear, she never told me that I'm just going to have my full-time employee do it. And so I just every once in a while would follow up, hey, just wanted to touch base where things are going, and why she didn't respond. But I just very nicely said like, hey, I would like comment on her stuff on social media. Like 4 months down the road, she was like, hey, remember when we had that call? That full-time employee could not do what you said that you could do, and it did not work out. Can we get back on a call? And so when I thought that was a rejection, that she had stopped responding, I just stayed top of mind. I sent her a couple of emails. I comment on some things on social media. So she kept me kind of in her brain, and that worked. And so that's not always going to work. I had people that just didn't have the budget, or, I had somebody that wanted to hire me, but she wanted to hire me for like nothing. And I was like, I just can't do that amount of work for so little. And so I had to say no as well, to protect what I was looking to do in terms of time and effort as well. But I think the biggest thing is that you just have to remember that there are going to be lots of other people out there. There's going to be lots of other opportunities. And just because it's not right now, if this is like a dream client of some that you want to work with, you can always kind of do those follow-ups and stay kind of top of mind by engaging with them on social media and things like that, because it might turn into, okay, now is the time.
Yeah, definitely don't burn any bridges and don't write anybody off. Keep them in your network.
Totally.
Let's finish up with kind of the DM conversation, because again, I think this is what's so stressful for people. So we're talking, maybe it moves and you're able to book that call. Let's talk about though, where does it get hazy in the DMs? Where do you feel like people struggle the most? If the goal is how to sell their services online, we want to get them to that discovery call or sales call conversation. When do we let a conversation fizzle, or when do we just know this is someone for my network, not someone to sell to? Because I think, does that make sense, Wendy? I feel like sometimes we kind of have that target. We're being that guy at the bar who wants to take people home. And it's like, I just need a client. I need a client. But there's so much value in adding people to your network as well. So how would you kind of speak to that?
I think a lot of it is like intuition. A lot of times, same thing about like the guy at the bar. If that girl's like standoffish, like you can see that in her body language and how the way that she responds to him. The DMs can be the same way. Not saying that we like can actively see them to see how they're responding, but paying attention. Are they like typing out their answers and really like you can tell that they're responding quickly and they're really responding with thought out answers instead of like a one word or like, thanks so much, have a great weekend. You can really tell when somebody's like has that wall up. I would say don't push those. If I sent a message to Lauren and I was like, hey, Lauren, thanks so much. I see that we're new friends on Facebook. Like, I see that you help moms in their businesses. How long have you been helping others with this? And you say, thanks, Wendy. It's been great to connect with you. I look forward to learning more about you. Have a great weekend. I would be like, okay, like maybe she's just not looking to talk further. You could maybe say something else to just gauge, to give you that final clarification. But a lot of times people are pretty upfront with kind of their responses. So I've had people say like, thanks so much. I see that you're a social media manager. I actually have a social media manager myself, but I would love to have you as part of my network and to learn more about who you are as a person. Like, people can kind of turn it down in a nice way. So if you have things like that, don't keep pushing it. That's where people put that wall up and things can kind of get ugly. So you definitely use your intuition. You can really feel it when somebody's interested in talking with you and not so much.
Another pro tip there, Wendy. I just got a message just this week, and my pro tip is don't be lazy. So back to your story about you spent 2 minutes looking at this person's Instagram account and you learned enough to be able to add 3 pieces of value to the conversation to answer her question. Just this week, I had someone friend me and they're like, so where are you from? And I'm like, that's literally on my profile. So don't be lazy, because I think my response to this person was, I feel like you're gearing up to sell me something. I don't feel like you actually want to get to know me, because if you did, you would have already done some of your homework. You know what I mean?
Totally.
So there's that, like, you have to be genuinely interested in the questions that you're asking, not just fishing, or the other person will feel it.
Totally. And I usually say, like, go to their profile, see, hey, this person lives in California and this person's a business coach. Does it say when they started their business coaching, business? You can say, hey, I was looking at your profile. I loved your post yesterday about XYZ. I see that you've been business coaching for like 5 years now. What's your favorite part about business coaching or something like that? Or, what's a big memory that you've had in a way that you've helped someone in their business? Something like that, because it shows, hey, she went to my profile and she read my post yesterday and she noticed that I've been in business it just shows that you pay attention and people really value that.
That's awesome. So good. Okay. If you are interested in taking the next step, Wendy actually has something for you that will help you market yourself in Facebook groups so you stand out, which, hello, that is very difficult to do. Like you're talking about the job posts with hundreds of threads, how to network with clients online. And again, I want to remind you, networking is not selling. Networking, I would argue, but I'm not the salesperson on here. I would argue that networking is exponentially more valuable than selling one-to-one, because when you truly add someone to your network, you now have access to their entire network through referrals as well. So when you can do that in a really genuine way, it's super powerful. And lastly, you're probably here watching this video because you want to know how to make more sales. So Wendy, if people want to take that next step, what does that look like? We'll obviously drop a link down below in the comments, but what do you have for them to continue to learn from you?
Yeah, so I actually have a program built that I built based on the exact things that I do for myself and for clients to learn how to talk to people. I would totally agree with Lauren. Networking is not selling. Networking is building relationships. Relationships is what sells, not just like those random things that we talked about. So it gives you those tips on how do I build those relationships, those connections to where I come off as a genuine person that can make a sale and not the icky person just looking for the sale. It's about those doing those things that build those connections. So I built a program that is all on how to do that effectively and in a genuine way to make you stand out from the people that are doing some of those icky things online.
That's amazing. And if you're looking for a place to build a genuine network, make sure you guys are a member of the Free Mama Movement Facebook group. You can check out that link down below as well. If you've got any questions for me or Wendy, make sure you drop them down in the comments below. Like, subscribe, all the things. Tag someone else who needs to know how to do all of these things. It's super important in this online space. But I just want to remind you, if you are a kind human and use your transferable skills and you actually show up trying to help people instead of just making it about yourself and selling, you will actually be a much better salesperson. So here's to getting your next client. Wendy, thank you so much for all of your knowledge and for being here on this episode of Free Mama TV. See you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.